The reason why we updated the company's laptop policy, by user Optimimus. Hello, everyone, this is the first time I've posted one of my stories of my life in tech support. So, to give some context, we give some of our users MacBooks so that they are able to work from home, other offices, or sometimes out of state. We also try to keep these MacBooks working as long as possible. For instance, one of our spare MacBooks is one of the early models that's still a damn workhorse. It also helps that we use VMware so that our users end up working in a Windows OS instead of Apple's. So, about 2 weeks prior to the event, one of our users, we'll name her Problem Child, called IT asking if she could ever get a new laptop since hers is old and some of the other higher UPS have been getting new MacBooks. We simply told her that her MacBook still worked and that she didn't need a replacement since the laptops were just cheap but reliable hardware that just needed to be able to access VMware. She wasn't exactly thrilled about the response we gave, but we thought that was the end of it. We were also happy to be done dealing with her since Problem Child was someone who managed to find new ways to make our jobs harder or break things. For instance, she had managed to completely wipe her phone and then expected us to fix it. So, 2 weeks after we got the call from her, she puts in a support ticket that morning with a problem that everyone in IT could not believe. We were all literally crowded in one office to hear this phone call. That morning, she had managed to run over her laptop with her car. Our minds were just completely blown at how this could happen, and her explanation couldn't have been any better. Problem Child and her husband had apparently gotten into a fight the night before, so her husband that morning had managed to wake up before her, went to a flower shop that was miraculously open at 6 a.m., and then came home to give her some flowers when she was about to get into her car, which caused her to set her laptop onto the ground, right under the car door, mind you. And then she completely forgot to pick her laptop up off the ground and instead got into the car and drove over the laptop. Somehow, her husband didn't point out to her during this that she forgot her laptop since he was by the car as well. What we all found amazing from this was that even after the laptop had been run over, the only issues with it were that the mouse pad had been cracked and that the top 2 inches of the screen were dead. Other than that, it still worked. While I personally thought we should have left her with the little laptop that could, my boss had to decline my opinion since Problem Child would just go to her manager to complain. So we gave her one of our old laptops as a replacement. After that, company policy was quickly changed to have users pay for damages/replacements of their laptops. How about I get you a calculator instead, by user HoogieBear1776. My wife has asked me to post this many times, so I'm finally typing it out. Also posted in r/sysadmin. Maybe 15 years ago, I was working as the sole IT person for a small business, 25 staff. I did everything IT related from servers, email, backups, computer setup and deployment, help desk, etc. If it plugged into an electrical outlet, it was considered IT, including the coffee pot. We had a woman in finance that was very pleasant but was completely technology challenged. I got along with her just fine and, at one point, would have considered her a friend. However, she started having login issues at some point. The first time this happened, I walked over to her desk and noticed her cap locks were on. I turned cap locks off and asked her to log in and she was able to log in fine. The next week she had the same login issue. I walked over, turned off her cap locks again, she logged in successfully, we had a little laugh, and went about our day. Unfortunately, this started to be a weekly routine. Login issue, cap locks on, turn off cap locks, login fine. As time went on, she got more and more snarky and agitated about it. She started saying things like, "I'm having that issue again, can you not fix it so it doesn't keep happening," like it was my fault she was consistently enabling cap locks on her computer. Fast forward about 5 months with the cap locks issue cropping up at least once a week, sometimes more. On this particular day our email server had crashed overnight and I was frantically trying to bring it back up when this woman walks into my office saying she can't log in. I tell her I am extremely busy but to verify her cap locks aren't on. She is obviously put out by my response and says sharply that she needs this fixed and that it is my responsibility to fix her issue. Conversation went something like this. Her, "I'm having login issues, again." Me, "I'm really busy with a system-wide issue, can you make sure your cap locks are off and try again?" Her, "This is an IT problem, you need to fix it." Me, "I don't have time for this right now, go check your cap locks." Her, "This has been a problem for months and you seem to be incapable of fixing this problem." Me, frustration boiling over, "You know what, I'm going to give you a calculator and take away your computer, because you are obviously too stupid to use a computer. Her sound of disgust storms off to our CEO's office. I knew I had crossed a line and feared being fired. About 20 minutes later, the CEO comes into my office, shuts the door, sits down, and says what happened. I told him the whole thing, apologized for losing my temper, and waited for his response. He took a while to collect his thoughts, me sweating the whole time. He looked me in the eye, gave me a little smile, and said it's taken care of itself. He then got up and walked out of my office. Unknown to me, the CEO and HR had been building a case to fire her for quite a while. So when she stormed into his office saying it was either 1, I got fired, or 2, she was going to quit, he simply said, "We accept your resignation." And that was it. I worked there several more years after this happened. TLDR, told a user she was too stupid to use a computer and got away with it. Why should business care if their way takes 12 hours instead of 5 minutes, by user-specific_training_62. This isn't really a tale of a silly request, but more of a rant about how little developers' time is valued. So we have an ASP.NET microservices application running on the cloud that does financial things for people in various countries, speaking various languages. So naturally it was built from the start with multilingual support. To that end, we actually developed a custom localization provider that uses JSON files for the translations instead of relying on the difficult-to-share with non-developers.resx files. The company is very strict about designs and exact phrases, so they have a dedicated team of translators that will take the default ENGB strings and translate them to e.g. French, Spanish, etc. Going on 2 years now, we've been having the same argument with the team of translators. Translators, please send us a spreadsheet of all the language strings so we can modify and validate them for the next release. Would it be okay if we sent you the JSON file instead, since there is much less chance of you inadvertently introducing weird characters into the keys and causing the application to not be able to find the right entry? Translators, we can't edit JSON files, we need Excel. Here is a desktop tool you can use to visually edit JSON. You'll see the key and the English string here, and here is the field where you'll input the French. Translators, we want to use Excel to do these translations. Our concern is that Excel introduces strange characters and random new lines into the key fields and thus causes problems. These known problems mean that after every round of updates and validations of our translations, we'd need to go through approximately 12 hours of painstaking validations. Using the JSON tool we provided means we can just drop the JSON files right in the release and avoid tying up 2 of our developers for 24 man-hours. Translators, emails our project manager and CCs the program manager, head of department, CTO, group head of product, complaining that we don't want to give them the translations that they asked for. Project manager, send them an Excel sheet with all the translation data. Export our JSON to CSV via a tool, save CSV as .xlsx. 2 weeks later. Project manager, here is the translation file. We have to deploy tonight. They changed the keys and added invalid characters in the translations. We have to manually check all the entries since about 30% of the data won't display right the way it was sent back to us. Project manager, how long will that take? About 12 hours for 2 guys since it's a couple thousand entries. Project manager, don't you have a tool that can automatically import from Excel? No, it's not possible for our tools to know when you meant to add such and such a character vs whether Excel put it there out of spite. However, we can avoid the whole problem if they simply used the JSON files and the tool we created for this exact purpose. We could add the translations pretty much without verifying them on our side if they used it and speed up our turnaround time by a day and a half. So anyway, just read the same story about 24 times to get an idea of what the last 2 years have been like. There is absolutely zero sympathy for my developers or even how much it costs the company in labor unnecessarily. But somehow IT is where money is wasted. Imagine spending almost $1,700, average senior dev hourly wage x 24 hours, every month so someone can copy stuff from Excel into a JSON file because you don't want to use a tool that would actually make your life easier too. Anyways, that's corporate life for you. Thank you for letting me vent. Surprise! Laptop locks only work when you use them. Who knew? By user Boberg. A number of years ago, I was the IT guy for a non-profit organization. We had a worldwide mission and our director traveled around the world extensively. This was way before video conferencing. Anyway, he needed a new laptop and asked me to get him a Sony Vaio, which was the lightest laptop at the time. I put in the order. Now, before I had left the commercial world and joined the non-profit organization, I was a road warrior, and my DEFCON lock with the 4-foot braided cable brought me a huge amount of peace of mind. I always locked my laptop to the desk when at a client's office, and I always locked my laptop to something solid in my hotel room when I went out to dinner. When I was at an airport, my laptop would be in its bag with the lock on, and the cable would be around the chair I was sitting on, just in case I fell asleep waiting for my flight. Shoot, I even locked my laptop when I was at the office. We had a guy at our own office who had a gambling problem and he treated laptops as his own personal ATM machine. And, before you call me out for being rude for locking my laptop while at a client's office, I was actually on a business trip once and my travel partner had his laptop lifted off the desk at the client's office while we were in a conference room and I was giving the presentation on my laptop. You can call me rude, but nobody was stealing my laptop. Anyway, the Sony Vaio had the locking port, so I bought the director a new DEFCON lock. I think it may have had 4 tumblers instead of the 3 that mine had. I showed him how to lock it and told him about the number of people I had known who had had their laptops stolen at my previous job, probably 5 or 6 altogether. I reminded him to lock the laptop to the desk or to his chair or to his bed or even inside the trunk of his car whenever he wasn't with it. He dutifully nodded and promised he would do as I had asked. 3 days later, he was on his way to Africa for a conference. I believe the conference was in Kenya, but it could have been in South Africa. The resort they were staying at was a hotel located in the middle of some sort of game preserve. The hotel itself was an incredibly long distance away from the entrance to the preserve. We're talking several thousand acres of land. If I recall correctly, the drive from the entrance of the preserve to the hotel was probably 100 kilometers, if not more. Anyway, the second day of the conference arrives, and I hear someone in the office gasp, and then, Bob Arg, you need to see this. I went over to his desk, and he had received an email from someone who was at the conference. Apparently, during lunch, the group of 50 people at the conference got up from the conference room and walked across the hallway to eat. The dining room was literally across the hall from the conference room, and the doors were open. When they got back, 5 or 6 laptops were missing, including the director's laptop. The hotel staff did a search but no laptops were found. Surprise, surprise. No unauthorized vehicles had been on the property during the conference. The official report was that whoever took the laptops must have walked from the hotel back to the entrance and disappeared. Again, the distance from the hotel to the preserve entrance was nearly 100 kilometers, and through wild terrain that included lions. Of course, I was livid. And then my phone rang. It was the director. I put a smile into my voice when I saw the call was from him. Here is my side of the conversation. Hi, Thomas, how are you doing? How is the conference going? Ahoy, several laptops were stolen, you say? Well, it's a good thing I bought you that DEFCON lock, then, isn't it? At least your laptop was spared, right? What do you mean they got yours, too? What did the thieves do? Saw through the braided cable. Those cables may be thin, but you can't really cut through them with ordinary pliers. Or perhaps they broke the rigid thing you had it locked around. Oh. You didn't have the lock in place. I see. Well, I'm sure you had your reasons. Yes, I will order you a new one so you'll have it when you get back. Of course, we're going to need to submit it to our insurance. Yes, the organization bought him another laptop. His dad was very wealthy and one of our largest donors, so the cost was covered by a private donation. And I bought him a second DEFCON lock and had him show me he knew how to use it. I don't got an email, I got a landline, by user Goodbian. I am currently working in healthcare and this was from the early days in my job on the patient support line. We had a service that allowed patients to access their medical info on their phones. I had one caller that really did not have a clue. As I tell this story I do have to be vague about some details, also keep in mind there are strict laws on access to patient info. Me, thank you for calling patient support, my name is Goodbean. Caller, I am having trouble getting into my account to get my stuff. Me, okay, I just need to ask you a few questions to verify your identity. I ask him the typical personal information questions as required to prove that he is who he says he is. Next up I have to verify the email address, otherwise I am not gonna be able to send a user ID or password reset link. Without a working email account the whole thing is a dead stop right here. Me, okay sir, what is your email address? Caller, what do you mean? Me, I need your email address so if need to send you your user ID or link to reset the password. Caller, I never needed one, I got a landline, how did you suppose I was able to register and use this system without one? Me, sir, the system would not allow you to create an account without an email address and there is one on file. Caller, what is it? Okay, I can tell him that. The kicker is that it's common for people to set up accounts for their elderly parents and use them. It complicates things since we have to talk directly to the patients and nobody can call on their behalf. In this case, this is when things goes downhill. I'm gonna paraphrase a bit on the address since I don't exactly remember. Me, the email address on your account is purple princess girl's name 420@noclue.com. Caller, that bitch. That's my goddamn whore of daughter. Get her off of there. Me, I need an email address to put in there. Caller, I don't got one, I got a landline. Get that shit off of there. Me, I can't unless I got a new one to take its place. You can go to Google, Yahoo, or Hotmail to set up a new one for free. Caller, god damn it, I fucking told you I have a landline. Pretty much it kept on going in circles until he slammed the phone down. There is a big reason why I don't do patient support anymore. Update, I know there is a long talk whether or not leaving the account as is was wrong to leave as is or done more. This was a really long time ago. The system at the time would not allow the account to exist without an email address. I really don't know the details of what is legally required, but this situation almost never came up. It's my understanding the rules around this have drastically changed and the system has drastically changed as well. These days the email address is the user ID, so it is necessary. I would have gladly helped out, but this guy was in a rage.